What's happening, people? Y'all know what time it is. It is 8:30, just a little bit, 8:30 something. It is time for Classic Conversations with JT and Lo.
And we don't know where that copy is, but somewhere out there.
You'll still get to ask him a question. We'll make sure it gets to him. Listen, man, great to be back, man. I was out of here last week. We're going to get this thing going. But before we get started, listen, man, I need for y'all to make sure y'all do what I've been telling you to do. Love the way my man Angelo put it last week. I need you to hit those buttons over there to the side. The like button, the love button. Hit the cry button if you want to. You can get mad at us if you want to. You can even be surprised. You can say, wow, whatever you want to do. When you hit the buttons, it's going to help our
algorithm
go up. Because as I've told you, Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, make sure that you go follow and also share. Follow and share, people. Follow and share. The share button is the one with the little arrow. Usually it is pointing to the right as you're looking at it. Let me see. Yeah, it's usually pointing to the right. Hit that button. Share it to all your followers, all your friends, or just share it to a couple of them. Either way, you're going to help us, man. I need you to share that thing out there. 404-500-1605. That is the telephone number to give us a telephone call, because this conversation is actually going to be helpful to our community, plus probably somebody within your family, somebody that you know personally. So let's get it going. Angelo, how was your week, guy?
Hey, man, it was pretty cool. Did y'all get the thing, though? Can we hit the button? God, dog, I had it set up, JT, didn't you?
They hit the button? What?
Yeah, hit the button. God, dog. We'll do it next time. Get it together, man. Hey, man, so listen, first of all, as you can see, this is the first of many that you're going to see. Without a doubt.
Oh, okay.
National champs.
Yeah. I see you.
Because I had to remind him a few times last week.
I see. Yeah, I tuned in a couple times.
Yeah, we won a national championship and all. So I just got to keep it fresh in memory. Yeah, national champs. But other than that, man, we was down there in Florida, man, for the tournament. That didn't go as well as we hoped. And I had to do all the driving, as you're well aware. The field was 13 minutes away, but due to traffic, it took about 27 minutes.
Wow.
So you know how I felt about that. But overall, man, I can't complain at all. Decent week, man. My Steelers lost, so season's over with. But we've already talked about that for the night, so I ain't gonna keep belaboring that subject. But without a doubt, national champs. But we're gonna skip to all that, JT, because we want to hear about your week.
Hey, man, let me tell you. We're going to be talking about my week for a couple of weeks, to be honest with you. The week, as I've said in prior weeks, I was up in Pittsburgh preparing for the God stage play in Pittsburgh. From touchdown, the week was A1. From the time I touched down in Pittsburgh to the time that I left. Pittsburgh showed love, and when I'm saying Pittsburgh, I'm speaking of the people, the folks that brought us there, the folks that took care of us. The apartment that I stayed in was dope. I had my own joint. It was dope. The food was pretty good. A couple of places that we went to, the food was good. Believe it or not, I did not have a cigar until I got there Sunday. I did not have a cigar until Thursday night. And that was basically because I was zoned in on this play. I was zoned in. And also it was a little cold, so it was kind of hard to go stand outside and have a cigar, to be honest with you. That Thursday night, I did decide to go outside. I poured me a glass of cognac, and I walked outside. The crazy thing is, it was no ice, but by the time I got to the seats that I was going to sit in, it was cold. So that was the first cigar me and the wife had together. I put her on we did the little video chat, and we had a cigar together. But the whole experience, I'm calling it the God Guys experience, because we actually got to speak to the esteemed male academy up there. Right now it's 6th through 8th grade. We got to speak to those, they call them scholars in Pittsburgh. They don't call them kids, they call them scholars. Got to speak to them, and then we also went to an alternative school and got to speak to those scholars. And it was two different entities, because you're talking about a school of the arts, and then you're going to an alternative school. So one school, we're talking to them about the play, and the scholars, are asking about, the play, and they're asking how to get into acting and all that type of stuff. Then, and these scholars, they all had on, sports jackets and ties. Now, don't get me wrong, all the ties wasn't tied the right way, but they all had that on. Yeah. And then we go to the alternative school. So we went from kids sitting like this to kids sitting like this. Yeah. And it was a total different conversation. But it all resonated with these younger people. And we actually gifted tickets to them. I think it was over 150 of those came to the show on Friday. Okay. And it was just so powerful. Wow. It was so powerful to actually speak to younger people, and then these younger people actually ask you questions. Because I had to say, if you have a question you want to ask, but you don't want to ask it in front of your peers, come up to us after the show. Yeah. Oh man, there was so many that came up. How was it to live without your dad? When did you decide to get into acting? It was just, and then we ended up casting one of the scholars from the alternative school.
Is that right?
To be in the play, because one of our, we have a younger version of ourselves. Oh, wow. And one of the younger versions wasn't able to make it. So we was actually able to cast
that's dope.
One of the scholars. And as soon as we received word, all of us cast members knew exactly which one it was because of the questions that he was asking. So it was just, it was a powerful moment, man. And, for myself, it actually, just being around, this cast is dope. And being around them, you recognize, I ain't ashamed to say, damn, I ain't all that I thought I was.
Right.
And being around them and being willing to take direction and get to where you need to get, because that first day of rehearsal, Monday, I thought they was going to put me back on the plane. Seriously, I blew it. I blew it that first day, Monday. Tuesday was a little better, but, it just wasn't there. And that Tuesday night, I went in and I studied. And I told you when I talked to you that I saw the beginning, but then I went next door to a castmate and ran through my lines. Okay. Wednesday, man, I killed it. Okay. So I knew now that this thing is not only making me grow as a person, but it's helping me to grow as an actor. Sure. The experience was just, bro, I can't, there's not enough words to explain what I went through this week. It was that powerful. We did the same show here in Atlanta. We got love. But in Pittsburgh, the love we received in Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it's real love, because these people don't know me.
They don't know you.
They're not giving love just because they know you and trying to show support. These folks and they're still commenting on certain posts that we put up. They're still commenting. Y'all don't know, I appreciate y'all. Y'all changed lives in the city of Pittsburgh. Wow. Supposedly the city of Pittsburgh is like 16% black. But their stats in regards to being in jail is 74% black. Yeah. These folks came to the O'Reilly Theater in the middle of the cultural district downtown Pittsburgh. They were on time. They didn't say nothing out of the way during the play, and there was no incidents. They showed out.
Yeah, that's good. Man.
They showed. It was an experience, man. It's changed me going forward, especially on what I'm going to do. What I expect for you to give to me going forward as I do these things. Yeah, it's changed me going forward. It's changed. What they say, what the price was yesterday ain't the same price today. Yeah, man. Things have changed for the classic, man. You did? Listen, I've taken up all our little time because, again, for the next couple of weeks, y'all going to hear about the God Guy's experience from me. We're going to come back. We're going to introduce our guest. Then we're going to get into some good stuff. Classic Conversations with JT and Lo.
And Ask a Cop.
We'll be right back.
Thank y'all, listeners.
Regrouping, right? Beginning of the year. This is the time of the year where we start getting contracts and stuff together, making sure we're ready for clients and building up the what we do's in my life. Getting ready for some things.
Okay.
Really getting ready for some things. I got some stuff coming up. February, June, I got 2 major things going up. So I just been working, grinding, man. That's it.
Good deal. Getting yourself ready, setting that base to help people. That's what it's about.
Yep.
And the guest that you brought with us, how you doing, young man?
I'm well. What's going on, my brother?
Hey, man, everything is good. Dr. Curtis Jasper, everybody. Dr. Curtis Jasper's in the building.
Appreciate you, man.
You know, so talk to us, brother. How you been? You know, what's going on? What are you here for today?
That's good. Well, whenever, brothers are assembling, talking some good stuff, I'm going to pull up. Even it is a cold, freezing 25-degree Tuesday morning, but I don't live too far, so it's a pleasure to be here, man. Thank you.
Listen, I'd take 25 degrees any day compared to what I just came from. I got off the plane. I wanted to take my jacket off. It felt so great. Well, listen, people, what we're going to talk about, this is why we have these people here, into their profession and everything. What we're going to talk about is basically historical trauma. We're going to talk about recognizing and dealing with it. The questions that I put out today, because after doing the play that I did, it actually rolls right into it. How do you recognize a past trauma, and then once recognized, how do you deal with it? We're going to start with you in regards to recognizing a past trauma. How do you? I mean, don't get me wrong. I know everybody recognizes things in different ways.
Correct.
So what we're doing today is giving people examples of how they could probably recognize if they've had a past trauma. So,
absolutely. So historical trauma is definitely things that irritate your soul, and it's a trigger. You get angry about it instantly when you see or hear it. You can't really focus once it's come into your face. You understand it. Hence, we got the little girl who's crying because she don't want to go with her dad. And everybody's saying, why you don't want to go, right? And nobody's thinking, why she crying about going with her daddy? Nobody's paying attention. Or the little girl who, don't leave me at home with my brother. I don't want to stay here with him. Don't leave me here with him. Like, girl, I got to go to work. You got to stay here. And nobody's paying attention that children don't know fear yet. They shouldn't be afraid of the people they see every day. So if I'm there and I recognize it, something happened to this baby from these people, and nobody's asking the questions. How for me, it's going to trigger because I was that young girl in that home. So I noticed the whole, didn't nobody pay attention. They didn't protect me. So it starts to look a little familiar. And when it starts feeling familiar in your body, you understand it from when you were put into it. So people have to start being honest with the fact that the sweep under the rug syndrome is over. It's time to release the things that you've held so long, which became historical, because you've been holding it for 40-something plus years, 30 years or 10, maybe 5. However long, you've never shared it. And it's just, I always call it the unhealed wound inside of your soul. You took the scab off, you put the Band-Aid on. You take the scab off, you put the Band-Aid on. It just never heals. So you recognize it because you see it.
You go by Dr. Kurt or Dr. Jasper? Dr. Kurt.
Yeah.
All right, so Dr. Kurt,
Yes, sir.
in regards to what she just said, as an adult that might have his or her own traumas, how would that person kind of recognize that they actually have a trauma or past trauma that's affecting them today?
That's a good question. So there's a couple of things that I'd like to mention about trauma. So there's, the big T trauma that we collectively experience as a people from oppression, right?
Facts.
And then there's a little T trauma, which is more individualized. I think you both touched on that today. And so what usually happens is it becomes so disruptive that your day-to-day function starts to be interrupted, right? But most people go their entire lives without realizing that they have adverse traumatic effects that has caused them to do a lot of different things, from body aches to illnesses to relationship breakdown. It's not always catastrophic because keep in mind, we normalize stuff that was once traumatic, but that's how we able to move past it, right? And so one of the things that is a huge misconception for a lot of people is that trauma is not stored in the brain, it's stored in the body, right? And so trauma is not stored in the brain, it's stored in the body, right? The emotions are stored in the body. It's processed to whatever degree in the brain. It's attempted to make sense. It's lived out. But the emotions are trapped inside the body, which is how we become triggered and re-traumatized, right? And so there's this thing where, we as a people, right, black and brown people, black people, we have this collective trauma that we don't even consider trauma no more, right? I grew up south side of Chicago. When I got robbed by myself, it was traumatic. But when me and all my partners got stuck up, we just got stuck up. We were slipping. It was both traumatic. We chose to process it differently.
Right.
The difference was I was by myself and I felt all alone. But when I was with my partners, we just got caught slipping, right? That's the message I sent to my brain to make sense out of it. They both were stored in my body when that gun was to the side of my head, right? And so the story stops serving you after a while. You start normalizing things, right? You start normalizing things. I'm thinking, that's normal, right? Until I became an adult, and I'm like, that ain't normal. So much so, and I'll close with this, that when I bought my first firearm, I had to go talk to my therapist about that. Like, as a grown man. Like, wait a minute, right? like, I get to legally carry a firearm, but who am I really legally carrying this firearm to protect? Myself, right? Ain't no white boys coming
like
in.
Wow.
No disrespect, but ain't no suburban white boys that's gonna come to the door that I know of. Right. So I had to wrap my mind with my therapist, like, wait a minute. I've been serving black boys my whole life, right? I'm a former public school teacher, a former principal. So now you mean to tell me that I gotta prepare for the very babies that I help raise in the community?
That's deep.
We tripping because
That's deep.
we've had that conversation. Why do people buy guns?
Ask a cop. Ask you all the time.
If he was in right now, he'd probably be jumping
would you
up
buy
and
the
down.
gun to protect
He'd be
yourself
jumping up and
against?
down in his seat right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
He'd be jumping up and down.
Yep.
Now, in regards to normalizing, certain traumas, I can identify with that because as you get older, as I've progressed in life and recognized what my trauma was and had therapy, but I'm still recognizing certain things that I've normalized, but I've done those things because of a reaction that I did back then. That's actually made me acting certain ways normal. So in regards to long-term traumas that you normalize, I'm trying to make sure I wrote all this down and I left it. How would you say it's been normal to you for so long, so how do you treat that or how do you change that behavior? What's the best way to change that behavior because it's been normal to you for so long? Like, let's say you're always doing certain things to please a certain group of people because of whatever trauma you had from the past.
Correct.
And you've done it for 30 years. How do you change that behavior?
So a couple things, right? So keep in mind that whatever reaction that we chose at that time was out of a sense of survival, right? That's what we did. So it actually worked, right? To the degree that every time that situation or that scenario came up, we went into this protective mode, whether it was people pleasing or whether it was punching somebody in the face. That's how we chose to protect ourselves when things became overloaded to us, right? You get to the point where it starts to really disrupt your life. How do you know when you are infected by trauma? Agencies come into your life, whether it's an attorney with a divorce or a doctor with an illness or some agencies come into your life. That's usually what does it for black folks.
Right.
Agencies come into your house, and when they do, it's hard to get them out. Right? That's a clear sign. Because, see, we survivors. We could deal with, getting laid off. We could deal with moving. We could deal with a break in income. We could deal with, the stuff that we got to deal with to survive. But when it gets really, really disruptive, when it takes over, it's the duration. And it's big enough where you cannot ignore it, where agencies literally come into your life. And sometimes it's not you. Your traumatic, what worked for you has now been passed down to your kids. So you think they're acting out in school. No, they acting out at home pleasing you. They exhibiting their freedom in school. It just goes against the school instructional program.
Right.
Interesting.
Boy,
Thanks.
Interesting.
damn. I'm just thinking about certain things. It's like, wow. I'm sorry, y'all, but as he's saying it, I'm just thinking of stuff like that.
So how do people even know that they've had a traumatic, like, how do they, like, say, when you can really recognize that whatever you're dealing with was a result of some type of trauma? Is it something that some people, I don't think they know why they do certain things or act certain ways?
Yeah.
Like they don't know it's normal because their mama did it and their daddy did it and their sister did it.
Yeah.
So it seems a little normal to them. Right. So you understand it because I always give this analogy when I'm speaking to the youth. You're at your mom's house and there is no dinner at 6 p.m. Right. It's like feeding for itself, put them dishes up, make sure you do what you got to do. But then you go to visit other places. And I might go to Sally's house, who's one of my good friends. We go to school together. She invites me over. And Dad says, sit down at 6 o'clock. No phones on. Bring your topic. And everybody jumping through the house, excited, happy. And you're like, what's happening? What's your daddy talking about? What you mean the topic? And what do you mean the phone? Put the phone down. Like, Sally embarrassed because she recognized now you asking questions and you're making her feel like it's weird because you didn't know nothing about it. But Sally been doing this since she could sit at the table outside of her high chair. Mm-hmm. So now she's thinking, oh, my dad, he just, don't worry about it. It's cool. Because Sally went to my house. She liked the dysfunction. She never had that. Mm. But I came to Sally's house, and I'm looking like, I need this structure. Mm. Something ain't right. Who's right, who's wrong? Sally parents ain't right, and my mama ain't wrong. We just got different morals and values. So now I notice this ain't normal over here. And I don't know if theirs is normal, but we know they ain't the same. Mm. Now I get older, and I go to 5 more houses like Sally's. Something ain't right.
Something ain't right with my house.
Something ain't right with my house.
Everybody else's.
Yeah, it's too much going on. That's different. Right, and I'm not seeing a commonality in it in other places.
All right.
It's fair that we got something going on over here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, and I'm speaking now, and I get that. I could see 14, 15, 16, 17, 8, teenager into early 20s, seeing something like that and recognizing a difference. But say for somebody that's 40-something years old, that's been doing something a certain way all their life because of, let's say, a lot of people say some women have a daddy syndrome.
Yes, it's a thing.
So a young lady that's actually been submissive and with a certain level of servitude to men that she's involved with. Mm-hmm. But she's done that all of her life because of the way she grew up, seeing either her mother do it mm-hmm. or having to do it to all of her uncles or whatever. Mm-hmm. Could have been because of a sexual trauma, could have been because of a physical trauma. How are they to recognize that what they're doing? Because what they're doing is different, but and again, I know that everybody recognizes things differently, but how are they going to recognize that it was a trauma that got them to this point to where they're actually with this level of servitude to people because of a trauma in the past? Because it's different than what she sees certain girlfriends doing because, they're treated with the respect that they're supposed to be treated with from a man.
Right. I think gender, I want you to touch on a gender base, and I'll just kind of hit the women part. When we were little, they called us loose, but didn't know we were raped. They didn't know we were molested. And the body yearns for what it gets. It's unfortunate that the body is going to initially like the touch sexually, whether you're 6 or 60, if it happens to you all the time. So when little girls get older and women call them loose, or she promiscuous and she loose and she fast, right? Nobody ever recognized how she know that. Nobody ever said that. So then if the daddy's not in the house, women, the gender of the girl yearns for something they don't have when they see other people having it. I might not yearn for a husband if I've had one, but I'm going to yearn for a daddy because I love the way my girlfriend's father caters to her. So I'm yearning for it. I can never get a daddy if he's not going to be there, but I can make sure this man I'm with stays and protects me the way a daddy should. So I'm going to yearn my entire adulthood to this codependency issue of keeping someone close so people don't leave and run.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, most of the exposure is through intimate relationships, right? And so we carry on these survival traits, right? Most of us are still living in survival mode, regardless of our bank balances, right? We just are, mostly because of trauma. And so the number one exposure is when you join forces with another adult, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. The exposure is high, whether it's codependency or somehow you've attracted your ideal mate and you blow it, right? To answer your question, and I think you both asked him, like, how do you know? You don't always know. Sometimes stuff gets so big in your life that you have to seek out professionalism, and they bring it full circle for you, right? I've worked with people who have had pains in their back, right? Thinking it's hereditary, right? Arthritis, here come the rain and all that, not realizing that it's that trapped emotional energy as a result of that traumatic event, right? Because when it got trapped, it stunted their growth, right? Trauma stunts your emotional development. Like, so we keep growing chronologically, but that's why you hear that term, like, you know, he or she are locked into, right? Because when they were traumatized, the nervous system shut down, right? And then they had to find a way to reset, whether it's hypervigilance or it's a slow crawl. So trauma comes in different ways, right? There's complex trauma, right? We got, you know, vicarious trauma. We got a lot of different traumas, right? One of the things that I speak specifically with black folks is, like, we share unique trauma. I don't care where you're from, we share, and it's important that we step outside what's known as a colonized version of trauma, right? That they'll assess you in the mental health arena, right? But that's different than black trauma. That's different than black trauma, right? We have a unique trauma that stems from historical oppression, right? You may think it's down here, right? This comes from a bigger place. This comes from generations, right? This comes from generations. The idea of we often start off with speaking about young girls being touched. There's an old stat that said 1 in 4 males have been sexually violated, right? It's probably close to about 1 in 3 now, right? And I deal with it every single day. Come on.
Hold yourself right there. She's already asked us to close this out, and you hit on a point that I was going to ask you when we came back. So let's stay right there. We're going to continue when we get back with that in regards to little boys being touched. Classic Conversations with JT and Lo.
And ask.